Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on today's pre-departure webinar on money matters and health insurance. I have with me today my colleague Elena Sheikh. She's the International Student Coordinator, and my name is Nima Hussein, and I'm an International Student Coordinator as well. We're going to start out by asking Elena, as she's the expert in the money matters and health insurance issues that international students deal with. Aside from paying tuition fees, how much more should students budget for 1 year of studies?
So generally in our office, when students arrive, we find that many of them are concerned about the fact that they really did not understand the costs that are associated with living overseas while they're on their own. So oftentimes the students will budget for a certain amount, and then within a month or two, they realize, oh boy, they're really overspending, and they will not have the money last them for the whole academic year. Now, as part of immigration regulations, the students have to show that they have enough funding to support themselves for at least the first year of studies. Now, that amount is generally about $10,000 plus tuition. However, if you look at all of the costs that you will incur in your daily expenses, such as going up for a coffee, you get internet services for your apartment or the basement or the room that you're renting. Also, your cell phone bill. You need to call your parents. You need to call your friends. Those things do really add up. And on the screen in front of you, you should see the approximate cost that you can expect when you're living in Canada, whether you are going to be attending our Davis campus in Brampton, and Mississauga campus, Hazel McCallion, or Trafalgar campus in Oakville. Now, I think a lot of our students are surprised at the cost of, for example, coffee. You know, $2 coffee may not be very common in many of our countries that students come from. Also, public transportation. And this is one cost that I think students should really budget for, as many of them are used to having very cheap transportation in their home country. You can expect to pay about $3.25 for a trip, whether it's going to the mall that's 2 kilometers away from the campus, or that's going to 20 kilometers to a friend's house. Now, in many countries, it is common for the cost of the trip, cost of the ticket, I should say, to be to be, I guess, relevant to the distance that the student travels. Now, what you find here is that the cost is always the same, whether you're traveling 2 kilometers or 20 kilometers. Hence why it's very important that you budget for it and you really do plan for your trip. So if you're going to be going on a shopping spree somewhere that's 20 kilometers away, then you may want to combine those trips and maybe apply for a transfer ticket. So that's one thing that I've had one of our peer mentors in our international center tell me is that he really wishes that somebody would have told him about a transfer system. So we do have this option for those individuals that are traveling on public transportation where they can take a transfer and will be able to use that same ticket for the same price to travel in a short period of time to another destination using the same ticket or that transfer. So just keep in mind that the transportation system may be different from what you're used to, and certainly come to the International Center if there are any questions about how to get around the campuses.
Another suggestion that I would say is get used to the currency conversion between your currency and the Canadian currency before you even come here, so that you have an idea that when someone says a sandwich is um, $7, you really know what that $7 means to you. At the same time, because of the exchange rate, don't always convert back in your head that, oh, back home this would cost me 80% less than what I'm paying here. So the cost of living is higher here, so be aware of that, and try your best to budget. You can get a lot of help from Sheridan College in terms of how to budget, and we do help you with some workshops on that when you arrive. So just be aware of that. Now, Elena, I would ask, aside from family support, how else could my students earn additional income while studying here?
Certainly, many of our students do end up getting an on-campus job. Now, you have to keep in mind that obviously those jobs are limited as the number of students wanting to take a job exceeds the number of jobs available. On-campus jobs, scholarships, and awards is another option that I will actually talk about a little later on, where once students arrive, they have the option of applying for an award or a bursary as long as they have maintained satisfactory academic standing and in many cases have really exceeded those. So I think one point would be to ensure that your academics are your first priority and ensuring that your grade point average is as high as you can get it to, because you have to remember your number one priority is your studies and you're here to get an education, hence why it's, the majority of our awards require very high academic standing in order to be considered. So on-campus jobs, scholarships, and awards, co-op placement, that's another option. So for those students that are going to be in a co-op program, they will have co-op work terms as part of their program studies here in Canada, and many of those co-op work terms are paid. So that's another source of an income. Off-campus employment, to which the students generally will become eligible after the first 6 months of full-time studies, as long as they have maintained satisfactory academic standing. And I think that would be the top ones.
I would though caution you about working off campus um, while studying. Um, you need to be aware of the fact that your goal here is to graduate academic to graduate and succeed academically. Of course, if you're in a tough situation where you need to supplement the fees that your parents are helping you pay, you may be pressured to work, but if you have to work, um, try to work on weekends, not during school days. Or you could have a schedule where you have 1 or 2 days in between during the week that you're not taking any classes at all. That does happen sometimes. But try not to make finances your number one priority. Your actual number one priority is your studies. And so, if a job is going to keep you away from studying or attending classes, then you'll be wasting the investment that your parents have invested in you to pay your student fees. So you don't want to waste that by looking for a part-time job. So just be aware of um, how it could hurt you working off campus while studying. So try to work as little hours as possible and try to only make it during the weekends. That's my recommendation.
And also keep in mind that there are limitations, immigration limitations on the number of hours that you may be allowed to work. Now, so when you arrive in Canada, one of the top things on your list generally for our international students is to open an account, as you want to ensure that you have a bank account where your parents may wire the money. You may want to have a bank account where you can deposit those paychecks that you get from your on-campus job. You also may want to have an account where it would make things much easier for you to transfer the funds from your account to pay your tuition for Sheridan. So there are a number of major banks here in Canada that you can take advantage of when it comes to your checking or a savings account that you would be applying for. Now, all of them generally offer similar products, meaning that they may have a student banking package that is available to students at no charge. I would highly recommend that you ask around and see maybe a bank that is closest to where you're living, as well as the campus where you're going to be studying here at Sheridan. But the banks that you have on the screen are the top 5 banks that we have in Canada. And I would highly recommend that perhaps before your arrival, you may want to research these banks and see which one fits your needs the most. Majority of our students will open both a checking account and a saving account, and the difference is that with your checking account, this is where you will have the majority of your transactions take place, and your savings account will be there just to hold your savings. So let's say you're going to be paying your tuition in 4 more months in the future, then you may want to hold that money in your savings account. Now, the savings account will generally pay a little higher interest than your checking. Your checking account will generally not pay much at all. But checking account will provide you with an option of having a number of transactions included as part of your package. So what you have to keep in mind is that majority of the bank accounts will have a limit on the number of withdrawals that you can make from your account within 1 month. So that's why it's very important that when you do research on all of the banks outlined on the screen, that you ensure that the number of transactions, including included as part of the student package really fits your needs. Some students prefer to use their debit card everywhere they go. They go to a movie, they go grocery shopping, so they continuously use that card, which obviously increases the number of transactions and may result in additional fees. So you can be looking at an extra 50 cents per transaction or 75 cents, depending on the banking institution. So one word of advice is if you do have a limited number of transactions that is not enough for you during that month, you may want to do a cashback option. So if you go to a grocery store and you made a purchase of $20.75, it will ask you, would you like to do some cashback? So there will be an opportunity for you to withdraw, let's say $40 in addition to the $20.75 that you could take as part of one transaction. So again, you can always plan for your trips for the day. So if you know you're going to 5 stores, instead of using your card at each store, you can maybe withdraw an amount of cash that will be sufficient enough for you to make that shopping trip. Do you have any other?
Actually, in terms of budgeting, I would highly encourage you to try your best to actually work with cash. So withdraw, budget yourself for the week or the month. Withdraw the amount of money you need for that week